There was a tragic accident in the Channel this week. 17 men, 7 women and 3 children died as they tried to make it to Britain in a dinghy. France blames the UK blames France, and regardless of who's right, 17 men, 7 women and 3 died trying to get to safety. And let's remember, these weren't migrants who were bored of their hometown and wanted to see where the Queen came from. These were almost certainly refugees fleeing some pretty awful conditions, like this in Syria. I mean, that's Aleppo. Ask yourself, what would you do if that was your hometown? 70% of people who were granted refugee status in the UK in the last decade came from Syria.
I think, and so much talk of it, there's such a lack of kind of compassion and humanity, and I think what people overlook, seemingly, is the kind of lottery of where you are born, and which you've got no say in. And we're hugely lucky in that we're born in a kind of very, both born in safe Western countries.
Yeah.
Or relatively safe Western countries. And you've got to kind of consider that that isn't a blessing that everyone has. And if you're in a war zone, you know, we should be thinking about these people, and they're people, we shouldn't be labelling them just migrants. These are people.
Yeah.
And we should be thinking about them as such. And you should go, oh, I'm so blessed to live here. And you should try and share that kind of experience, I think.
I think that there's a kind of almost sometimes there's a rhetoric that's kind of played out that the people that are coming here, they're coming here to take the piss.
Yeah.
That's some of the stuff you kind of... But that's just not true. If you know, those channel crossings are so immensely dangerous. People aren't doing that, unless they're absolutely desperate. These are people with families. People are putting their children on that. They are not doing that because they think, apparently it's all right in Britain.
Yeah.
And the rhetoric is wrong. And there's also sometimes things people say about, but what about people here? The idea that if people come over from war-torn countries and they're taking away something from people here, but that's simply not true. And also, why can't we should be caring more for people here and also caring for these people too. We can do both. It's not a choice of one or the other. And the government, people talk about the money. Look at the billions they wasted on test and trace.
Yeah.
You can do both.
This side, thoughts? I mean,
it's just...
I'm assuming you're not going to balance what's been said with an alternative opinion.
Just a massive tragedy, and it's heartbreaking, and it's the lack of compassion that is just so upsetting to witness. We take the lowest number of refugees in Europe. It's not as if there's a flood. And the way this is reported, the numbers, don't add up. Loads of other European countries are doing more of the share than we are. It's shameful how little this country is doing for refugees.
And I think the thing that this, among other things, reveals how we are in an era of politics where the senior politicians don't really want to solve problems. They want to move towards things that are successful and move away from things that are unsuccessful. And you can see that in the way Boris Johnson and Macron are essentially playing this issue off against each other. And they're essentially courting the xenophobes on either in each country over this issue.
Yeah.
So Johnson is saying, I'm being tough on France because they need to sort this out. Macron saying, I'm not having this nonsense from the UK. Meanwhile, the issue, which is a huge global tragedy that's playing out, neither of them are really addressing, because it's difficult to address that, and it's a lot easier just to say slightly rude things about the French and get votes that way.
Yeah.
And that's very depressing.
Priti Patel blamed the broken system and vowed to fix it. But the Tories have been in power for 11 years. You can't keep blaming the system when you're in charge of it. So Boris Johnson wrote a public letter to Emmanuel Macron yesterday and ended it by saying France should take back the refugees. Macron kicked off, disinvited Priti Patel from a European summit on the subject. Now, the irony is, if Britain was still in the EU, France would have to take the refugees back. But because we're not, Britain can't force them to do it. On the other hand, a visa scheme that was introduced to entice award-winning international scientists to the UK has had no applications whatsoever.
To put that into context...
Yep.
Naked Attraction gets hundreds of applicants. And that is essentially a show where you're judged on what your dick and balls look like.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of inflammatory language flying around about refugees and asylum seekers, so let's try to cut through some of it. The first claim is that refugees are only here for the benefits.
Bullshit.
All figures show that people that come to this country pay way more in tax than they receive in benefits. In fact, asylum seekers receive less than £37 a week in benefits. They would actually get more if they stayed in France. The second myth is that asylum seekers are arriving illegally.
Bullshit.
There is nothing illegal about asking for asylum when you've left a war-torn country. And the majority trying to get here across the Channel are doing just that. The third claim is that Britain is full.
Bullshit.
Thank you. Not even close. We desperately need lorry drivers, fruit pickers, NHS workers. The list goes on. And thanks to the pandemic and Brexit, net migration is down by 88%. And by the way, while we're at it, can we all please stop shitting on the Royal National Lifeboat Institution? They're volunteers. It's their job to keep people safe at sea. They're like doctors. They don't question who you are or where you came from. They're there to keep you alive and well. The idea that the RNLI shouldn't be offering every assistance to refugees in the Channel is...
A turd the size of Disneyland Paris.